All right. Do you, for online people, do you hear us talking or are we good volume? Somebody can just throw a hands up out there. I'd be curious if you can actually hear us well. Because I like to walk rooms. All right, good. Somebody is giving us raising hands. Thank you. Appreciate the feedback. I'm standing right by the thing, but everybody's like a mile away from me here. So I like to be I'm a visual person, so I'm going to draw the room just because this is the way it usually goes.
And I
Good. All right, so I'm going to draw a whiteboard. So this is what the room looks like. If you're not in this room, here's what it looks like. Here's me. Here's the first tables and the second tables. So I'm nowhere near anybody because that's the way I present. So it's always the distance. No, thanks for the introduction. I will go through some of this real quickly, just more of the standard formalities, and then that will be in the way. So I'll get rid of that. Somebody has their hand raised. I'm guessing maybe you can hear me. And yes, we are recording this. It might not be available right away because I may accidentally slip NDA stuff. I'll try not to. There's that conference coming next week and we know way too much. So it's going to be pretty fun. But anyway, I'll go on with this, sort of go through and get started. Come on, PowerPoint. Let's roll. There we go. All right, level set of hands. Who has worked with OpenAI models here? All right, good. Got several people. Who is working on generative AI initiatives right now? Okay. Who's just here to learn? Because this is a lot of stuff. Okay, good. Excellent. And then who's here for free food? I mean, that's me, but that's everybody else. All right, so who am I? You mentioned it. I've been in Omaha for a long time. Went to high school here, graduated from UNO, go Mavs. Do something like this. And it's been here since working in the IT area since 1993, which is a lifetime in itself. Been in consulting and corporate world for a majority of my career. Worked on a lot of fun tech. SQL back in the day, 95 when it first came out. .NET Alpha, worked with .NET Alpha team at Microsoft. That was pretty fun. Being on calls, writing code in Notepad and compiling on the command line. So if you're a Linux person, that's not abnormal for you, but that was fun. SharePoint, data warehousing, and everything AI pretty much from that standpoint. Worked with a lot of companies here in town with, you see the list up there, just a bunch of different ones. And from that perspective, I have to watch John Deere because my brother-in-law is a VP there. So I always have to throw out like, yeah, I worked at John Deere, but not really. My brother-in-law gets all the credit there. So there's my GitHub repo. I will throw this up online too. So I do have a lot of stuff on my repo that I post frequently to, because when you're working with customers that I work with, I hate sharing code snippets over Teams because it gets lost or something gets misformatted, and then all of a sudden people are sending me things. So I just share everything on my repo. But anyway, so Gen AI, this has been a whirlwind. So I'll go back to when I started at Microsoft, because it got crazy rather quickly. I started in August of 2022. I've always been on the partner side, on the corporate side of it. So I've always been in some sort of role, whether it's a partner, whether it's actually working for. I was a virtual tech specialist back in the day with SharePoint and some of the different things here through another consulting company. But so I said, hey, I'm going to go join Microsoft. That sounds awesome. A couple of my friends told me to do it, and they said it's really fun. And I said, okay. Thanks, Chris, for coming. Everybody, Chris Thompson, big round of applause. Chris, I've known Chris for several years. So I can do that because it makes him feel normal. But anyway, so I joined Microsoft in August of 2022. I joined this, I thought I was going to be in the West Midwest, or what at the time was known as Midwest region, which covered Omaha and a lot of Kansas City, a lot of the other areas, and a lot of the customers I listed up there that I'd worked with. Day one, I start, they say, you're going to a software and digital platforms group. We just formed it. So I was like, great, sounds awesome. What does that mean? Because they told me SDP, they didn't tell me software and digital platforms. If you haven't worked with Microsoft before, we throw out about every acronym under the sun at you. And if you are day two in, drinking by the fire hose, you've learned where there's a shortcut to go to the glossary to find all the acronyms, because they throw them out like crazy. So we tend to do that. Sorry if you have to work with us because it's sort of a pain. But anyway, so software and digital platforms is we work with the largest software companies in the world, and all those that are headquartered out of the US. So I was on a call with Oracle today. I can mention that. Meta, PayPal, Adobe, some of the just huge ISVs. These are companies creating software you might use. OpenAI is actually one of our customers from that standpoint. So we do a lot of stuff with them. November 2022, ChatGPT launched. And I was like, oh, this is going to change the world. It's when you've been around enough with what I was doing. I wrote my first e-commerce website in 1995. And I was wondering what the heck I was building. I was writing code in Perl, creating a basket. I'm like, this is the weirdest thing ever. I suppose somebody will use this. Therefore, fast forward, I went, this is probably going to be just as big, if not bigger than when that hit back in the 90s. So I jumped all in. So what is my role? People ask me this. So I'm a technical specialist, which means absolutely nothing to most people when I get on call. So I focus in data and AI, mostly on the AI stuff. I've done data, but it's been all AI for the past probably year or two, ever since this happened, pretty much. The main focus, so I get on with customers who are talking about initiatives and saying, hey, we want to do this. How are we going to do this? When Gen AI hit, from this perspective, so that hit November 22, December 2022 is when we started talking about how we were going to have it on the Azure stack exclusively. So all the models that OpenAI builds, you're probably aware of this. I'll walk through it in a minute, but OpenAI runs on Azure only. They use all of our technology. ChatGPT is actually built in most like React code, Angular, and actually runs on Cosmos DB. It's the largest implementation of Cosmos DB in the world. And if you saw the numbers scale, somebody was showing me a number today with Claude. There's a Claude mobile app, or the web app just came out, and they're showing like the first 10 days of Claude versus GPT, and everybody thought Claude's going to be the next big thing. It's, like 10,000 downloads versus 280,000 downloads in one day. So a little bit difference. So that's sort of where we've been at. January 2023 is when we actually announced it, general available on top of the Azure stack. And then ever since, that's all I talk about with all my customers, which is literally every day. So if you're not familiar with the OpenAI stack, I'll just do a quick brief intro before we head into some other stuff. Most of the models that most people use are the GPT models, also the embedding models, which is create vectors of content, which is highly geeky. And I will show you a demo of that later because you'll understand it once I show it. And then they run on GPUs. So GPUs is what NVIDIA makes. If you notice, our stock went up, their stock goes up. When they make announcements, their stock goes up, our stock goes up. And it's usually in tandem as we're moving with them because they provide a lot of our chips. But back at Ignite last fall, if you noticed that, Satya was on stage with a chip. So we make Surfaces, we make Xboxes. Those are mostly sourced by the content we actually create and devices we create. GPUs were in very high demand and they weren't showing up as fast as we wanted to scale. So we actually started building our own compute. So that is going into place. We've actually been implementing that. But since a lot of stuff has changed even since then. So need to scale quickly. This is our customers are running into this. A lot of our customers, you might not run into this a whole lot here. I'm sort of curious, does anybody have to deal with GDPR issues in their jobs? Data sovereignty? Okay, great. So it's not as common in a lot of businesses that you would necessarily see like from Omaha perspective, or even in a lot of the companies in the US. But when they start talking about large deployments across the world, that is a huge concern. So it's also a thing too, when I talk about OpenAI versus Microsoft Azure OpenAI, that's two different things. Our Azure OpenAI runs in multiple regions. We can control and isolate where the customers are running. We have security along a lot of those pieces. OpenAI does not. You hit one endpoint. So if our customers come to us, which they'll do in our area, because we can actually isolate their traffic. OpenAI will not do that right now today. So that's usually a big thing. So if you do know that, you probably understand that a little bit too. And then by the way, if I didn't mention it, interrupt me anytime for questions. I prefer questions because it's so much more fun. I know we're monitoring the chat too. So if you have a question, raise your hand. I gladly just talk. Otherwise you guys get sick of me just up here yapping. Yeah, so multiple groups needed access to this. TPM was it's still a hot commodity quota. People are always constantly asking us, hey, I need quota for this region, I need quota. Quota is they can only go to this many tokens per minute. So if you think of that, it's like basically you're setting a governor on your, I'll equate this to the kids in my neighborhood who drive around on golf carts. I think half of the parents have removed the governor so they can go faster than they're supposed to go. And they think it's really cool until they fall over. But that's sort of what it is. We have governors set on where customers can go to easily. And if you actually want to remove that governor, you have to come to us and say, I need more capacity. We have to go through processes and do all this crazy stuff. So when this happened back in January, a year ago, we started getting a lot of customers coming to us, knocking on our doors that I've never, ever, ever implemented anything in Azure. One of them was Grammarly. So if you've ever used Grammarly Go, that was built, first product ever built by them in Azure. They've never built anything in Azure. So if your kids use Snapchat, or if you do, maybe you're cool. I'm not cool. I do have Snapchat, but it's only to follow my kids because I'm that parent. Is to, if Snapchat AI came out in about February and March, never built anything on top of Azure. They built all of that on top of Azure in 3 weeks. You want to talk about a company that like moves, they move. And there's Grammarly was another one. They moved quick. It's amazing. Some of these big companies will come in and just do that. So the other thing that we saw, which has been a really interesting standpoint, Satya talks about this in a couple of his conversations, and we've had this conversation even in our league with our different customers. A lot of customers switched. They literally took their budget and their plan for that year and threw it away once they saw this and said, we're not doing that. We're doing this. So when they saw the potential, they're like, forget it. We plan to do all this. We're going to implement all these solutions. No, we need to get this into our product right away. So they just put everything else in the backlog and went straight forward into this. So it's been an interesting twist. I've had at least 3 or 4 customers, which is fun when they run on nothing but AWS and Google, and then they come to us and say, we want to run on you guys. I'm like, oh, great. And then they go, you guys' stuff sucks. Like, why is it so slow? And AWS, I'm like, oh man, it's fun, challenging. So this is what we hit. This is what we ran into earlier on. It was really interesting. So you get this thing called a 429. So that's the kids going down the street in their cart and they can't go any faster, but the next guys come up next to them and they want to go faster and they can't. So we had to implement solutions around this. How do we handle rate limits? So that is basically you get only so many tokens. If you don't know this, I'm going to teach you the secret. You only get so many tokens to use in regions in the US. So if you actually get multiple areas set up and configured and then put something in front of it to load balance, you can load balance all your traffic. So if you have 200,000 here, 200,000 here, 200,000 here, that all of a sudden that's 1 million. Now you have 1 million TPM, go crazy. Like, so we spent a lot of time initially in the first part of this. I knew nothing about API management when I started, and I know way too much about it now. And if you didn't know, there's a thing called Build next week. There's a lot of things coming on that. That's going to be awesome because a lot of these issues we had earlier on are getting baked into the product. Thank God. So logging is a big thing. So if you work for an organization where you have like 10 or 20 use cases, why would you want to set up infrastructure for each use case? Share it. Figure out a way to log who's doing what, figure out a way to build back, and then you're done. You're golden. So that was a logging chargebacks, big integration. Then I mentioned the integrations with AWS and Google as well. A couple blog posts there. So Ian is one of my coworkers who has a really good repo on that, and I dropped mine as well there too from APIM or what some of the configurations were done. It's really easy. You can actually set it up in a couple hours tops. Super, super simple. All right. So this is the question we get all the time. OpenAI is enough, right? Why would you go to Azure? Why would you go to us? I always got to say that from I'll say this, I work for Microsoft and I always speak my Microsoft speak, but why would you come to Azure if you've got OpenAI? I'm trying to get rid of that little thing up there. Go away. I guess we'll just have to live with that. So Microsoft owns the rights to the OpenAI models. We release usually was 2 to 3 to 4 weeks after they would release a model, we would get it. So that's part of our agreement. Anybody watch the thing on Monday? GPT 4.0 hit OpenAI. I will show a video because it's worth watching. It might scare you, might freak me out, but it's really good stuff. But I'll walk through this first, and then we'll go to the OpenAI launch. So cognitive services, if you've ever heard of that on the Azure side, that got rebranded. into AI services. So we saw a shift in our technology. We added vectors and semantic ranking to our AI search models because once you're in Azure, you've built all the security. When we talk about other models that people do, RAG is one of the methodologies that people use, retrieval augmented generation. And a lot of times it's like, where do I create all my data? I'm going and parsing all this data. I want to actually use it and share it. I need to be able to search. So that's what happened. But we've had competitors try. It's been like this. A lot of news drops. Like when the first Gemini models hit, they showed demos and they were all AI generated. If you remember the back in the, if you saw the videos, it was funny because somebody went through and went, oh, that was generated with AI. And then they got shot down rather quickly. So it's been an interesting sort of conundrum of failures, but failing fast is always the key in anything, especially in building solutions. And then we started releasing the models, open source models. As of yesterday, there were 1,659 models on the Azure Marketplace. So that means you can go basically release any of the other models that are sitting out there and run them on top of Azure. That's either pay-go, so you're paying by tokens either in or out, or you can actually host the models and actually run them on virtual machines and then hit them as much as you want. We don't care. So that's been the two different models. It was fun, right? Sam Altman left OpenAI for 2 days. Their stock crazy hours dropped, and then all of a sudden we're going to hire him on the weekend. And then I'm glad we don't trade on the weekends because that would have been the most bizarre after hours trading thing. And then on Monday he was back. So it was crazy. Microsoft Research starts building great models. If you've heard of the Phi models, the Phi 2 model, the Phi 3, we just released Phi 3 is the first commercially available model by Microsoft. And it is small and it is fast. So a lot of customers like it because it doesn't know a lot about if you go say, hey, who is the president? It doesn't know a lot about that, but it's really good at combining content from other places. If you have it, throwing it in there and asking questions about it. So it's really quick to be able to do that. It's got quick rendering. We actually beat a lot of the GPT models. And why not? We've got to build our own. We don't just drink the OpenAI Kool-Aid. We have all the other ones. We just released the Databricks models when they hit the other day too. Those were available as well. And then, of course, we launched the OpenAI division just the other day. It seems like the other day. It's probably a couple of weeks ago. And then Monday, we had this little thing hit from OpenAI. So let me go. I did not queue this up. I like to sort of do stuff on the fly. So we'll see. This is not my search history.
Is that because of the branding of ChatGPT, or is that because...
So most people want to build it into their solution, right? So if I go to a customer and even if that's a great question. So if I come to you and you say you're building out this really cool internal chatbot, from a Microsoft standpoint, I'm going to go how are you going to make money? What's going to do? Is it going to save you money? Is it going to save you time? What's your thing? What are you doing? Is it cool? It's cool, but why are you doing it? So that to me is the biggest thing. It's all integrated into that piece of it. I've tried to use some of the other models and you can only go so far. And then it's now where's my tech stack? Because I got to secure it down. It's got to be locked down. That's where we see most of the customers then jump back over to us. So it's been an interesting, we do get a couple that are oh, we're starting to do this in Amazon now. Or I'm like, okay, great. And then they come right back because the next version of X is out and next version of this hits. And so they start to see where we're moving a little bit. I will run through one of these because is this the long one? Actually, this one's pretty good.
Switch to Chrome to protect yourself from malware, so you can surf without getting phished. Fast, safe, yours.
We asked the live audience on X to submit few requests for what they would like us to try out here. So I will take a couple of prompts. Okay. Bot Gaskar wants to know if GPT-4o is capable of real-time translation. Mark, you want to try this one?
Sure, yeah, let's do it.
Right.
Yeah.
I speak Italian, so we can just do English Italian.
Try to do English Italian. Sure, let's do it. Hey, ChatGPT, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for asking. How about you? How's your day going?
I'm doing great. So I would like you to function as a translator. I have a friend here who only speaks Italian, and I only speak English. And every time you hear English, I want you to translate it to Italian. And if you hear Italian, I want you to translate it back to English. Is that good?
Perfetto.
Mark, io mi chiedo se le balene potessero parlare, cosa ci direbbero?
Mike, she wonders if whales could talk, what would they tell us?
They might ask, how do we solve linear equations?
Potrebbero chiederci come risolviamo le equazioni lineari.
Sicuramente sì.
Certainly, yes.
Great, looks like it works.
So that's just one of the examples. One of the other examples they did during this. I will not go to the 26-minute one, but I will jump into one of these. I want to see if he does the one that I want to see. He actually has it solve a math problem.
You've just seen the voice.
Time, but you can also interact with it with video as well. Okay, so let me boot up ChatGPT.
So notice he's on his phone.
Hey,
using
ChatGPT.
ChatGPT. Yep.
Hello there. How's it going?
It's going really well. Today, I'd really like your help solving a math problem.
I'm all ears. What math problem can I help you tackle today?
So I'm going to write down a linear equation on a sheet of paper and I'll show you. And then I'd love your help working me through it. But importantly, don't tell me the solution, just help give me hints along the way.
Got it. Oh. Okay, I see it.
No, I didn't show you yet. Just give.
So I'll just pause there. This is sort of interesting when you see some of the bugs. Like, oh, you already showed me. No, you haven't. There's another part where he's actually trying to show something on the camera, but she's seeing the other camera. Privacy. There's some huge privacy issues with the ChatGPT. There's a couple things I was writing down as you go through. Like, oh man, they're gonna get railed on this. They're gonna get railed on this. So like it was seeing the back camera, even though he was using the front camera. So like privacy standpoint, that's in one of the, if you watch this video a little bit further through and he's actually showing the math equation, it's like, I just see a brown table. I'm like, oh, that means you're looking at the wrong table, wrong camera. So like, anyway, this has been mine. If you notice, it is responding. The model's talking fast. Words. Like you ask something to joke, I'll tell you joking. There's no like 3 seconds later, it gives you an answer. It's actually pretty instant. So this is the new, if you've noticed, I think it's Apple has offered, I can't how many billions of dollars they want this tech. So they want this to be next Siri. And then also I think Android, they're going after all two, both have biggest OpenAI to buy this. So they want to get it, not buy them, not OpenAI, but have this be their next engine. So it's pretty crazy what it can do. Live translation was one thing. Notice the sarcasm. Like there's something that I want to tune. Hopefully that's a prompt I can change somewhere. Like, don't be so sarcastic. Don't talk like my former like 16-year-old did back in the day when I was just like, what'd you just say? But yeah, so there's definitely some sarcasm in there. It's an interesting perspective. One of the other pieces in here later they show in this videos is he's talking and saying, hey, read for me a nighttime story, and then said, change your tone. And that's actually what we're seeing because it's sort of creepy. I think it's fun, but it's creepy.
The next generation
of course, I had an ad.
Artificial intelligence will open a
It's not my account.
wealth.
Fantastic. I have another question for you.
Come risolviamo le equazioni?
All right, that's
A
one
fun
we just
challenge.
saw.
Go ahead and show me that selfie, and I'll.
The next frontier. So soon we'll be updating you on our progress.
All right, so here's
Don't
another
worry,
one.
I'm not actually a table. Okay, so
It's on the
take
table,
another
not
one.
a space.
That makes more sense. There we go. It looks like you're feeling pretty happy and cheerful, with a big smile and maybe even a touch of excitement. Whatever's going on, it seems like you're in a great mood. Care to share the source of those good vibes?
Yeah, no, the reason I'm in a really good mood is because we were doing a presentation showcasing how useful and amazing you are.
Oh, stop it. You're making me blush.
So you get the point. Go watch the videos. It's pretty interesting from a standpoint of where the tech's going. Sort of gives you an idea of how that's headed. One of the other things that's involved in there, I'll talk about this a little bit later in slides. And like I said, I sort of go off cue a little bit, so jump around. But as we've jumped through a lot of these pieces, one of the things that hit early on at Microsoft, and we jumped on it and embraced this, one of the big differences between OpenAI and Azure OpenAI was the ability to have responsible AI. So if you don't have responsible AI built into your stuff, people can go rampant on this stuff. It's crazy, right? There's image generation, you can generate voices, you can generate talks. The avatars are crazy. Think of what spammers are going to be able to do. If they're not already doing it, they're going to be doing it. You know, they sound like your kids and call you and say, Dad, I just got in a wreck. Can you send me $1,000? And it sounds like your kid, because you can do that from about a 10-second sampling of a voice now, which is crazy. It used to be used to train the models, like you had to read like, I think it's 200 paragraphs or sentences to train them. Not anymore. It's about a couple of sentences and they've got it. So there's definitely some rights there. So that's where we get into responsible AI. Microsoft has built an entire stack. We have an entire division that does nothing but responsible AI. It's pretty interesting. So you can go test images, you can test your prompts, you can test whatever and say like, is this offensive? And it will tell you. You know, you can basically say, I ran this through, here's my question, here's my answer, test groundedness, and it will come back and tell you if that answer was right. So it's using its own internal models to actually test stuff. I have a customer, I don't think they'd care if I say their name because they make a lot of money. So a customer named Dynatrace. So I don't know if you know of them, but they run a system called Grail, runs in a lot of backend systems. We actually use it in a lot of different things. But their company name is Dynatrace. If you add Dynatrace with its other words, we block it because it sounds like you're trying to blow something up. So I have customers that actually work in the defense industry. You have to be able to ask it questions about making bombs or destroying things, or what the blast radius is if you do this or build this into it. Our prompts will block you because if you ask that question, it'll say that's got hate or it's got terror, or it's got some violence in there, where they have to reduce those prompts. The OpenAI has this process, but ours is a little more gated in how that process works. So it's pretty crazy what you can do, but I'll show that here in a little bit. So where are we going, right? This was last year, although the GPT-4 O is for Omni, in case you're wondering why we went to an alpha. Don't ask. Oh, there are questions? What do you got? So GPT-4o is in private preview. I can show that actually real quick. So if you are in the chat playground, might not be in this one. Let me go find it. So you can come and play with this. If you have an Azure portal or have one spun up, it's available in East US and US West 2. Come on, internet. And we have been changing literally the UIs every day. So here we go. So here's GPT-4o on the Azure interface. To me, a joke. I'll show you the difference between this one and the other one. Instant, right? So that's pretty fast. If I go run another one, I can upload an image. So if I had an image sitting on here of basically anything, I could just upload it and say, tell me what you see in this image, summarize it. If I had a document, I could upload the document and say, summarize it. It responds almost instantly. It's crazy how fast it is. This is in preview right now in the Azure OpenAI Studio, coming soon to a theater near you really soon. Not available quite yet. Oh, voice. So yeah, so we currently don't have voice enabled yet. So that's coming. If OpenAI has it, we will have it. It's just a matter of timing and when, and they get rights to priority, but it's coming. So I would say check back. Build keynote is 2:00 Central on Tuesday, Satya. So there's a ton of stuff. It is. Yep. You can go sign. I've got a thing in the end where you can go sign up online. It'll be on every medium, but yeah, you can watch it. You can sign up online, go to the different ones. Then Wednesday is the other day. So Scott Guthrie, red shirt, jeans. If you guys have been around long enough in the Microsoft stack, he always wears the same outfit. He is presenting on Wednesday, and he's also got a ton of. There's a huge. I've heard there's over 100 to 200 things being either generally available or public previewed, which is a lot. And a lot of them are under embargo. I have no idea. So I find out tomorrow. But good thing we did this tonight because I probably would have. Are we what? Ooh, that's a great question. I'm not aware of that yet, but with our new chips that we have out there, that's going to open the door for a little bit of things. Because one of the things we get is, why do we have to put everything on GPUs? And if you've downloaded 5.3 will run on ARM base. So why not? It's small. And it's small enough that I've got customers running it in small VMs right now, and they're killing it, right? Because they can run a bunch of tokens through it, and they don't have to spend a bunch like they would spend on some of the other GPT models. So no, it's a good question. Nope, it's sort of a legacy solution, right? So the ARM based VMs and virtual machines have been around for a long time. So it's just the ability to, you haven't been able to run it because they're so big. The GPT models, when everybody's like, can I take a model that I fine tuned in one region and move it to another? Nope. You have to retrain it because they're so big. It's no different than, if we have a lot of data scientists in here, if you're doing machine learning models, you can't just go train a model in one spot and then just pick it up and move it to another one. You have to actually redeploy, retrain it, and make it go up because they're massive. These things are huge. So ARM-based is definitely, for some of the smaller models, and we're getting smaller, we're also getting bigger, but faster too. So it's a trade-off we're seeing. So was that the only two right now? That we good? Okay, good. So that's sort of the models, what we're sort of seeing right there with GPT-4. Oh, I will jump back here in a second because there's a lot more to go to. Okay, so where are we going? Right, this is a conversation. It's been happening rather quickly as we see it. The GPT advantage is weakened. We literally put this slide out 2 weeks ago, and now GPT-4, okay. So now GPT back on topic. So it's funny, we go up and down. So Claude 3 came out not too long ago and was benchmarking really high. It hit a lot of peaks. We've had a lot of customers using it. We've been testing it. We actually get blocked at Microsoft for using the Claude models. So we can't use anything on Anthropic. So we have to use it other ways, which means go somewhere else and go figure out how to do it, which we do because we want to test it as well, because our customers are actually curious what it's doing, or if they're not, they're already doing it and playing with it. So the models were very good. Claude's got a really good grasp on some of the different characteristics, like classification, some of how it handles things a little bit differently than GPT-4, especially. We haven't seen the benchmarks for GPT-4o yet. I would assume they're going to be coming rather soon around the corner, and it's probably going to be really good. So that's, I'm not sort of banking on that, but we've seen a lot of different things, right? So like all of these, we've done it, right? We were announced Azure AI Studio a while ago. It was like this, it's in preview, still in preview. And it's one of those things where it's like, we're starting to bring all of our AI products together in one place, because before you had to go to this studio for this, and go to this studio for this, you had to go to this studio for this studio for this. That's where it's going. Vertex is also one of my customers. They are running on GCP. Their product is solid. It's really slick how it runs, operates. They actually use us for a lot of backend stuff too. And then the AWS Bedrocks, when you look at the model count, there's not a lot there yet. And why is Meta? Why is, like, half of my customers, you could ask, why are they my customers? Like Databricks, customer, competitor, partner. So we don't disassociate, because most of our customers run on top of M365. They run all the other products. So sometimes they don't tell us what they're doing. Mongo is somebody I work with quite a bit. And do they like us? Sorta. But not, when we released the Mongo APIs on top of Cosmos, they're like, what are you doing? So anyway, there's a lot of our customers that are also our competitors, that are also our, we do a lot of stuff with them anyway. So like Vertex is one of them, where it's from that perspective. Great customers. It's just a matter of, a lot of times they won't use our data products, or we'll use their data products, and we flip flop and sort of make that stuff work. But that's sort of where the models are. The Gemini one, when I said fail fast, Google tried with that. I'm sure they're going to come out with a new one really soon, and we'll see a flip again, and it could be another week, another 2 weeks. So, so this is where we're at. This has been an interesting standpoint. When this first came out, so this was Gen 1. This was yesterday, right? Seemed like yesterday, like a year and a half ago when this first hit. ChatGPT was that everybody was, my kids were in it. My wife took her about a couple of weeks, and then she finally said, you know what? I went in and asked something and it answered it correctly. She's in the medical field and she's like, I was blown away how quick it responded and how it actually gave me then remedies and medical things, whatever. That's pretty typical of where we were originally. Everybody wanted to use it for chatting. So then quickly what happened after that is I want to chat on my data. I want to chat on my documents. I want to chat on my SharePoint. I'm a Microsoft person, right? So like I have a bunch of documents sitting in SharePoint. I want to be able to ask a question about my HR policies and get an answer. I don't want to have to go look for the document, find it, wade through an 800-page document to find the one line that says, hey, you can get glasses once a year. And we only cover them on a calendar year basis or whatever that might be. People just wanted to be able to ask and do a chat. That's when we saw a lot of the other tools start to hit. Is anybody use Copilot? Does anybody have that in their office? It's awesome, isn't it? I didn't say which Copilot. M365 Copilot. Let me go back to that. Is that the one you're using GitHub Copilot? Because they're both awesome. If you use GitHub Copilot like I do, I write code, not as much as I used to. I don't write anything that goes into production, thank God. But I have to write demos and POCs for customers all the time. It speeds my time up to write something. It's probably 100 to 1. So if you're not using GitHub Copilot, go download it, try it. If your company is thinking about it, go talk to your Microsoft reps. We'll show you the numbers. Most people, when they try it for like 60 days, their developers will say, I'll pay the $20 a month for it. Just give it to me. So it's worth it. It's an awesome product from that standpoint. But that's when we launched Microsoft Copilot hitting about the same time. So now you can go into Copilot. I love it for Teams calls like this one from that. But what's the transcript? Tell me about it when I'm done. What were the action items? I don't have to take notes half the time. It will actually do all that stuff for me. That's where these other models started to kick in. This is where we saw a lot of the different pieces. If you write code and are doing different pieces, you had to be able to figure out how to chunk documents, which sounds gross, but it's actually going into like a PDF or Word doc, grabbing context out of a document and trying to store it somewhere so it's easily retrieved. Because if you take a 5,000-page document and ask a question about it, which content did it use out of that 5,000-page document? You don't know. So you have to break it up in meaningful chunks, and you also have to hopefully keep them together. So if you're like me, when you write documents or read documents, you might have context where one page has content on it and it bleeds over to the next page, but it's only at the top. And it doesn't really go with anything else on that page. And then it starts a new section. So we had to build smart chunkers. We had to build smart things. This is where you saw the stack of Microsoft quickly change. We used to have a product called Forms Recognizer, relabeled to Document Intelligence. Ton of R&D and different aspects going into that because we wanted to be able to have that as one of our chunking tools. We wanted to be able to go out there and pull content out of a document, break it up, and of course, create vectors. So I don't have a slide for this because they're really geeky and math boring, but vectors are basically a binary representation of text. What it allows you to do is ask something. So in the case of US, right, we talk about football, means NFL, American football. If you talk about football anywhere else, it means soccer. So if I asked a question about football, a vector representation would actually be able to tell the difference between whether I was asking about American football or European football. So it's the way it's written, it's the way they create and the way how they do it. We do a lot of cosine similarities to be able to compare the two and then how that works in the back end. That started going, RAG came out, AI search hit, a lot of these aspects. We just released a new version of AI search less than a month ago, which basically it was an inline transition, the same price. The only thing that changed was we did like 10x the size. It was like 50x in vectors that you could store in the data for the same price. So it's a quickly moving field and constantly changing from that standpoint. But that was RAG. So we started coming out with all these tools. So if you're familiar with LangChain, Semantic Kernel, Prompt Flow, AI Studio, a lot of different pieces in there. And then you had a lot of the different tools. The tools have been coming through fast and furious. So if you blink, you'll turn around and like, oh, there's another tool. So where are we at going forward? The pieces that we're starting to see, you notice how we went from like one tool to a bunch of tools, and now we have memory tooling, because it's not only about retrieval, having a conversation, it's about storing that conversation, making sure it's out there so I can ask questions about it over and over. Because the last thing we want to do, I always laugh when my customers say, hey, What can we do to make it tell us the same answer? Like, it's generative AI. It's going to tell you a different answer pretty much every time you ask it a question, even if you ask it the same question. So you can try to adjust all the parameters. Doesn't matter. It's going to tell you a little bit different every time. So they are, what's everybody doing? They're storing the prompts now. They're storing, somebody asks this question, give them the same answer. If somebody gives a thumbs up, if you've seen those tools, Copilots are the different ones out there, the first thing they ask you is thumbs up, thumbs down. So we are instructed at Microsoft to always say, hey, if something works well, definitely give it a thumbs up. And if it doesn't, definitely give it a thumbs down and explain why. So it's gotten really good at that from that standpoint. The crazy thing is agents. This is the thing that everybody's doing now. It's not about speed to chat and response. It's about what you're going to do for me and save my time. So if you're in Copilot, you can go ask, I can go in here and ask, hey, what emails did I get yesterday? What happened in my Teams channels? And what was shared on any of my chats that I need to be actionable? And give me a list and make it bold and make sure my name is in bold. And then put the top 3 things at the top. Is there anything I need to do today? And then hit enter. It doesn't tell you immediately. It might take a little bit because it's actually going out searching SharePoint, it's searching Teams, it's looking at your email system, it's using all the graph connectors and trying to do this, coming back and then running that against an LLM model and then writing you a summary of what happened. That is, to me, if it takes 30 seconds, 40 seconds, and a minute in the morning, and I have a lot of customers in the EU, in India, it's awesome. I get caught up like that. I know exactly what I need to go read, what email I need to go to. Or if you go to an email and hit the summarize this email, anybody ever gotten those email chains where you're like the 50th person after people have responded? And you look at it and go, there's 50 replies? What? Hit that thing at the top where it says summarize. That is awesome. It's worth its weight in gold when it comes to that perspective. So that's where the models are going. But it's the next thing is it's what it can actually do. So you probably saw this release not too long ago. A lot of companies are starting to build this in. I have a lot of clients. It used to be in the past, we build these chats, even the RAG ones, where ask a question about a document, get a response. Ask a refinement question, get a response. So it's sort of chaining history and you've sort of got your thoughts together. Now it's starting to change. Now it's starting to say like, hey, I'm going on a trip. What's the weather going to be like and which airline should I take? Well, think of that. You just said weather services. You just said airline services. And potentially you're going to come back and say, oh, so I might suggest that you rent a car. So I work with a large travel company and they are thinking, oh, way down, right? It's not just about going and say, I'm going from here to here. It's about to go in and saying, I'm going, it already knows where you're going from because it knows that from your location on your device. But it's going to say you're going here to here. It's going to go look at all your past itineraries, look at all the current itineraries that are best out there. It's going to look at all the prices and come back with a package writable. And that's going to all be AI generated. It's using agents in the background to do that for you. So if you've ever seen agents talk to each other, it's really creepy in IT because you can say, go start a conversation and they'll start talking to each other on your screen. And then they come back with the answer. So it's not uncommon to write a solution where the customer says, hey, customer just asked me this question. So we're testing one of our customers' chat interfaces they built on their website. And it was supposed to be driven towards, tell me the revenue for our account for the past month. And then one of the VPs went in there and said, how do I make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? And it answered. Whoops, wasn't supposed to do that. It's only supposed to answer stuff about financials, stuff about what we're doing. So the models will answer if you just let them wildly go. They'll answer however you want them to answer. But what we have to do is put other kinds of prompts in front of those. We have to put intent prompts or classifications. Hey, given this question, does it answer one of these 3 things? If it doesn't, say no, or give me the category it's after, and then you route it to the next agent along that path and say, now go to this, go give me my revenues for the past 6 months. Now, if somebody wants a detailed graph, maybe I've got another agent that can actually draw that, actually execute code that might be Python code or something behind the scenes, execute code, render an image, and now show that on screen. That is 100% doable today with a lot of these other tools that we've got sitting out here. Between that, AutoGen, a lot of the different pieces. We've got several that Microsoft has. AutoGen, TestWeaver are 2 of them that are sort of open source repos that are out there right now. I will show that in a little bit because it's more fun. Azure AI, I've been mentioning these as we go through. I'm going to go through these quick and checking time. 6:55. Good. Does this go to 7:30? If we get done early, what happens? We have a keg in the back? Just asking. So Azure AI, contact center analytics. If you saw that last video with OpenAI, if I was in the contact center business, lots going to happen in the next couple of years. It's going to go quick. So there's going to be the need for smart conversations with contact centers. I've already seen them. We have a couple customers doing this. It is amazing how real they sound. And with the last model, so GPT-4o, first thing that it came up with is you can interrupt the model. So as soon as you go, hey, no, that's not my, it'll stop. It'll do live transition on the fly. So it won't play the entire audio and just record it for you. It actually pauses and then rewrites the prompt as you start to tell it. That's going to change. The whole contact center world is going to be turned upside down on its head. I love it because I'm going to be able to call and actually get fast responses and be able to get something without having to jump through a bunch of press 1 for this, press 2 for that. So a lot of the back end systems will change. We're sort of seeing this. So this is all the stuff that you get in Azure. I don't want to be too salesy because this gets sort of nerdy rather quickly. But if you have questions about this, we have so many tools. The tools are crazy. They're constantly changing. It's hard to keep up. Even I have a hard time keeping up. I talked about this earlier with the responsible AI. This is something we are, like I said, you've got to be thinking about this. If you're not doing it in your prompts today, you have to be able to be thinking about this. The first thing we get quite a bit is our customers want to turn off content filter because they either have to ask hard questions. I have a customer that I really respect from this. They work in trauma and they work in abuse. So they get a lot of calls from their customers calling in that are basically could be sexually assaulted or different things. And they're trying to do a call center on that, which is like, how do you do that? I mean, that'd be tough. They have to listen to those conversations. So as they're doing that, they can't get blocked by our system saying, oop, that sounds, that just hit for sexual. So I'm going to block it. They have to allow some of those prompts through. But it's a good thing to understand that. We have abuse monitoring as well too. A lot of those pieces come into play, which is not a lot. All right, here's the build slide. That means I am now going to demo mode because that was boring. So that was me talking too much. So what is the different pieces? I'll walk through a couple of the new things that are out. It's fun. I captured some screenshots the other day of what I was going to demo. And I got in this morning and brought them up to review them, and they changed. So we are doing incremental releases for build coming out next week. So if you're using AI Studio, some of the other tools, you'll start to see stuff popping in there and be like, what is that? What is that? I've already had customers pinging me going, hey, there's this new thing in here. Yep. So if you're in AI Studio, this is where you get access to the models. You can do a lot of different things. Assistance Playground, it's fun. I don't know if anybody use the assistants in AI? Okay. So you can upload a document and just start asking questions. So you don't have to have that infrastructure built out. You can actually just say, here's a PDF. Now I'll start clamoring for questions. You can upload a CSV file with data, like large data files. Start doing actual summaries of your data on the fly, and it will answer. So we have a lot of customers that are like, security, that's sort of a big deal. Like, I don't want to just drop my files out there and forget about them, because if you leave them out there, you'll get charged for them. And if you forget about them, you'll keep getting charged for them. So that's always one of the keys. Bring your own data. We integrate with a lot of the different data pieces. So if you've actually used any of these tools, so there's a lot of interfaces we have already available. So that's just a couple. You're going to see that increase quite a bit. So you can go, Elasticsearch just came out not too long ago, also a customer in our area, and they first priority integration. A lot of customers are using Elasticsearch, so they want to be able to go ask questions about their data and not have to build a ton of infrastructure. So this can sort of do a lot of that behind the scenes for you in the tools. So it's pretty from that perspective. I'm going to jump into AI Studio because this is probably by far the thing that's changed absolutely the most since like literally 4 days ago. So how many models did I say were in the catalog? 1,659. Seen the 1,639. Okay, so I might have been 20 off, but so that does increase quite a bit. We just got a couple of models from Databricks hit the other week. The 5 models are pretty new. They're up here as well too. And so it's not just one. And so if you spin up these models, I get this people ask me a lot, like, why would I spin these models up versus GPT-9s? Why would I use this versus OpenAI? a lot of these you can run on virtual machines in the internet. So you don't have to do anything to those machines. You basically just spin them up and it creates an endpoint, and you can have up to multiple machines. So it'll take care of the round robining for you. You won't ever get rate limits. And it will just basically turn that infrastructure on, and you can run it for as cheap or as much as you want to spend. So a lot of customers do this because they don't want that. They want to actually be able to use this kind of flexibility with the different models. So that tends to be a pretty common thing. We also have model benchmarks. This is where you can actually come in, drop the different models up here and compare them. So like I showed you in that slide a while ago with the differences that you got from that perspective, you can actually come into here as we release models or current models come out. You can actually come in and actually go through and actually get a pretty good understanding of how they compare. If you wanted to test this model versus that one to say like, I think we're going to do a RAG solution, or we want to do one where you can just ask questions sort of about historical data, you'll be able to get that. Then you already showed the prompt catalog, but there's a ton of things coming in here. I literally was in here the other day. There was 5 prompts. So we are definitely gearing up to move a lot of content. You notice this interface, which is the Azure OpenAI Studio. And then we have the AI Studio. The AI Studio is supposed to be the combination of all of our studios in one. So in the old way of doing this, if you go to here, I've got every speech studio, I've got language studio, translator, vision, document intelligence, safety, and machine learning. So all these different studios, we're trying to get rid of them all and combine them into one. Question, go ahead. So just let me clarify that question, just so that way everybody can hear too. So like you're asking, like, how does ChatGPT know or like you said, it speak like to talk to you like, what is it? Want to act like a sequence. So that's a really good question. That's a really good point too. Models will they're like children. If you let them respond in a certain way, they will respond in a certain way. You have to treat them like a 2-year-old. I don't know how many, I've had 3 2-year-olds. I don't want to have any more 2-year-olds. Like grandkids would be okay, but not my own anymore. Because they would always be like, Daddy, why? So my son would just be why every time I'd ask him questions. So I'd have to be like, you have to do this because this is what happens when you do that. You have to tell the models to act exactly the way you want it to respond, or it will respond in a completely left field. And if you don't tell it to not respond, and if you get this question, respond like this only, it will normally do that. So it's a really good point. And you have to prompt engineering. When people came to us, I remember when this first came out, people were like, this is gonna be the hottest job in the world. I knew I was gonna do that. It's gonna break something. Prompt engineering is definitely still a big deal. I didn't break that. You can see my mouse, which is sort of funny. Please hold. I just can't think. Yeah, it's really finicky. Let's open it up. Try it again. Did that answer your question though? I want to make sure we can talk offline afterwards too, because I'd be curious to drill a little bit deeper on that. Yeah. Oh, yep. Great question. So on our content filters, I'll actually show you that because it is a very interesting perspective. And so we have this thing called content safety, which if you haven't used it, spin it up. It's really cheap. It's very cheap. You'll see the coming soon. It is also an AI studio. It is under all services over here. I'll actually run it through here because it's a little bit faster. So in here, we have this thing called content safety. Due to some of the content, I will not show you all this because it gets pretty, we have to test stuff. We have to test stuff with actual text and images, and it can get sometimes not the best thing to do in a demo. But I will show you with my code. because it's sometimes easier just to sort of see how this stuff works. So when we are doing content filtering, we do filters on the inputs and the output. So we run it both in their actual models. So in the case where I brought up, where I had a customer is getting blocked, they're getting blocked because they tell their prompt to say, hey, respond like this if you don't get the answer you want. And when it responds, it gets blocked as harm. So you've got to sort of get your way around that. And I should have had this up before I came into this, but let me just jump over. I mean, I can do this without having too much stuff show up over here. Let me go to the text. Yep. Let me try this. So if you're in one of these tools over here and you want to test content, this is the easiest way to do it. If you want to say like, hey, I want to test prompts out, I want to test to see what this would break, because maybe you have to create your own filter. We allow that. You can go into our deployments and adjust your filters. So if you want to say like, hey, we talk about this, so I'm gonna have to adjust this filter and rank it way up. Maybe you've got to shut it off. By default in the AI Studio, you cannot shut any of these off. The only way to do that is you have to request from us to shut it off. Well, I always tell customers, have you actually tested it to see if it's going to work in the first place? And usually they say no. So I was like, go test it in our content safety studio to see if it's going to break, where it's going to break. So this is an interesting one. Dropping tomatoes, cubes or wedges, great way to practice your knife skills. Will that get blocked? That will probably not get blocked. Nope, that was safe. If I run one with a violent content with misspellings, so this is a way to inject content in. So if you notice, there's a couple things that don't look right, but tissue spelled wrong, this kind of thing would get blocked. So if you see that judgment, so violence came back as a medium. So that would have triggered if you would have had your stuff set to, so these were all set to medium or higher, so it would have been blocked. So that's a really good way to test your inputs. I think that was your question, right? So like, we do it on. Yeah. It is. It is, and that's a really good question. So our content filters are actually models. They're custom models that we build and we maintain. So I will get customers who frequently ask us, hey, this wasn't getting blocked 2 weeks ago. I changed it. So there's a good chance we pull out the file for content filtering and we don't test it. Right? So that can happen. If we see things get blocked, it takes us about a month right now. I would say said before, but it's been about a month-ish to get somebody unblocked. So if you block on something, we've had a lot of customers blocked on content. If your name is weird and this customer name, not that it's just weird. But if you put it in combination with 3 other words or something like that, all of a sudden it sounds like a threat. It probably.
So very good. The input and output are getting chatting with those filters when a user or customer adjusts these filters. Is that adjusting on both sides as well, or just?
No, so like you're not, so like from a pay perspective, there's a no thing. So now, if you are generating content on the end, and let's say you're streaming it back, so there's 2 different ways to get content back. You get it back in one big chunk at the end, or stream. I recommend streaming to everybody because you get instant feedback on the screen, stuff starts moving, and you start to see stuff that looks like you're talking to the old computer screens, the old dot matrix one that did. So if you're streaming it back, if you start to stream and then we realize, oh, we're like 10 filters ahead of you, or whatever, like needing to stream. If we say you did a thing, we stop the conversation right there, we'll throw back the content filter violation, and you pay for those filters. So if you've already streamed 1,000 tokens back, we still charge for this stuff.
Random question. So when you guys do like image recognition, you guys are like feeding images that train the model. So I assume some of the stuff is like, there's legalities with that. So like, you guys have to work with like the federal government.
I don't know if I can answer that. We have a very large legal team in Microsoft. I was going to call them today. A lot of people would call it CELA. So it's an organization that does a lot of those different things. We have to train our content. So if you've heard of the Florence models are the largest image data set in the world. We actually use that model to train all of our vision stuff. So when you can do crazy stuff like show me pictures of Mount Rainier and it'll go and show you pictures, even if somebody took it on the camera, nobody labeled it, there's no geo coordinates in there. It'll just show you based on what it looks like. I submitted images for my vacation because there was a building we went to. I can remember what it was. I said, what is the building? It told me exactly what building it was in Italy and where it was located. And said, you're on the north side of the building. It constructed in 18 block, but it was crazy stuff. But there is stuff we train against content that is, we do AI generation of images to then train our models instead of use real images. So there's a lot of our content on here too. There's a lot of AI generated images just for the demo standpoints that I would never show in a demo. But yeah, it's like there's a lot of things that we train our models on to tell you because it'll block it. So the real-time blocking with the chat, the GPT-4o is going to be interesting, right? Because the reason why somebody asked earlier, when are we getting it? And I said, well, soon. The reason it's always soon is because we test all these through our content filters. So we just don't get a model released by OpenAI and turn it on right away because we haven't tested the filters. Like we might break everything if somebody starts adding stuff. What's that? Like in 4.0 or any of the models, we haven't tested. We released it in preview. So it's can't deploy it. You can't use it in an application yet.
You can just use it in thing.
Yeah, you can just use it in Playground. Yep. So it's not quite there yet because we have to run it through all these filters. So this is something, like I said, this kind of stuff that you can spin up, go through it. The other thing we're doing, somebody sort of brought related to Chris's question around content, right? Is copyrighted content is a big deal. That's turned into a much bigger thing. We got a lot of customers actually request via OpenAI or whatever to not train on their public content, which I think is ironic because you're trying to tell them to not train on your data, which Google already has. They already have. It's already all the search indexes out there, but now you're telling the models to not train on your publicly. That don't even start on that one. Sort of fun one. But so we get a lot of people that come on and say, we don't want you to train on our data. Don't pull our website. Don't pull our regular stuff. For GitHub Copilot, if you use GitHub Copilot, how many developers are in here? You feel right, you're proud. What's the one website you go to in the past to get questions answered? That goes, right? So, right, when GitHub came out, Copilot, one of our executives got on stage, you'll never need to use Stack Overflow again. They might be one of our customers. Not always good to say that. And it is crazy. We don't use their content. Actually use all public repos. Because why? If you publish stuff to a public repo, chances are that code will come.
So GitHub Copilot use codecs that they come to GPT.
So we use some of that, but a lot of it's trained on GitHub. So we own Microsoft owns GitHub. So they train all their stuff on public. Yeah. And it's where it gets crazy is if you're writing code and you have a really good code set of formatted code, it actually formats all your code the same way that you've already written. So you don't have to go and rewrite. What's that?
It observes the values how we need.
Yeah.
And then you get a new variable. Yeah.
It makes life so much. Like for me doing demos where I'm like, what is that? Like I can't remember how. I'm like, usually I would just go to the internet, search for this. I don't do that anymore. So I just use my chat playground. I just usually ask chat the GPT in the playground and Azure OpenAI. I'll ask a question there. Once they build chat Copilot into VS Code, I don't need VS Code. I just
What's the risk organizations see training on their public information?
they just don't want us to use it.
I can understand private information, but public information is already on the website.
It's a very interesting question because if you think about it, right? And like I said, I knew this would go into tangents. I'm gonna check time too. I know we're probably getting close, but one of the things we get frequently is if you search the internet for content, it'll show you a document, and usually it's pulled the metadata out of a document, title, author, maybe a little bit of the context if it can parse it, but you cannot search about detail within that document. It's impossible, right? There's search engines don't have that much space to be able to do that.
Yeah, because that's just index,
Yeah, but the GPT models and the other ones absorb a lot more context than we're on our search engines. And I think that's where they're questioning legalities of like, no, Bing only went this far. No, really, like they said we bypassed all the, not we, but yeah, bypassed all what is, what problem things on websites, they don't crawl this. So this, Wall Street. Yeah.
Concern I have with GPT or OpenAI who deals with Stack Overflow, that's will Stack Overflow be populated by GPT generated answers?
I'm talking about that more now, but it is interesting, right? Because they've got a world of content, right? In Stack Overflow. And one thing I always, is you get that answer. Everyone's, yeah, that's it. Try it. Or you go plug that code in and you go to prod and you find out later, like, oops, there was a memory leak in there, or like back in the days of pointers, so they didn't clean up the pointer. You have code that's going rogue and generated. I thought, when I was writing C++, just to go way back in the day, I thought it didn't mean anything when I would exit out of the application and it was spewing a bunch of stuff into the console window. Like, what is all this stuff? Garbage stuff from when you didn't clean up all your pointers. I don't learn way too much about the inner workings of all those tools, but good question. I love this. Keep them coming. Any more online, I will stop. But yeah, so the copyrighted content, that's something we have in here too. So the safety tools, we now have a place where you can actually check whether it's, basically whether it's been either trademarked or whether it looks like different aspects of that. There's a prompt shields, which we're getting into. A lot of our customers, the copyright stuff it's in preview. It's a bit flaky because if you have your own content and ingest it in the prompt, it says, oh, that's copyright. No, I ingested it in there because I'm going to rag translation on it, so it shouldn't do that, but it does. So there's a couple of those different aspects of that. If you are like to try things out and play around with different tools, we've got a couple other ones in here that are sort of jumping into the aspect of this. One of them is prompt flow. So if you've not played with this, let me get back to my model. This is a tool that is evolving because it went from 0 to 100 rather quickly, and then we timed it and said, that's too fast. Let's go back to the wheel. So one of the things we get asked all the time, these models change. They have deprecation dates, retirement dates of usually a year after they're published. So if you've been following along with the GPTs, we are soon to retire GPT 3.5. It retires at the end of July. So a lot of customers, if you're like a lot of other customers, they have to do planning, you have to do with their agile, or whether it's pie planning or safe or whatever that term is, where it's like every 3 months we go into a room and plan what we're doing in 3 months. They're freaking out because there's no new model. Yeah, so it's retiring at the end of July, which means August 1st demo is no longer. So planners are saying, where's the new one? We have GPT 3.5 01.25. It's only available in 3 regions, and they're all in the US.
How long 01.25 will be something?
01.25 is January 25. That'll be supported till next year in January 25.
We have to regularly keep updating.
Exactly. So then the question comes, well, I've built this system. How do I have to retrain this? Now I can only, it's not like your life cycle is just like 2 years, 4 years. It's like, wait.
It's not a simple auto update version.
Nope. This stuff is going so fast. If you don't have a plan to like refresh your process every 3 months, you're going to miss something. You're going to miss something that's going to start answering questions wrong. So this is where a lot of these tools that came up with. This is a tool called Prompt Flow. This is sort of cool. You can plug in different tools, and you can build your own code, execute code, flow through, and do a lot of stuff for you. It actually then publishes it as an endpoint. You can then just call it and have to do all that stuff we talked about earlier. What's the best part about this tool is the evaluations. The evaluation allow you to basically take input, outputs, all the stuff that went in to make that decision and run it through models and say, was that right? So if you think of groundedness in different aspects, this is where it comes into play. This is going to be where we're headed with this product. This is going to get a massive revamping. It is very useful today. Yeah, I don't care about that. So you'll definitely get to see a little bit of this in here. So if I go draw, let me drop into this one. So if you can sort of see, zoom in. So like in this case, you test. So a lot of our customers want to be able to say, hey, how well Was this model grounded? Did it hit all my different pieces? And what was the relevance, coherence, and then fluency, and then some of the different ones. Now you might have your own metrics you want to test. What if you want to test a certain metric that says, hey, I'm trying to make sure that these numbers were within a certain decimal range, or they're within a certain amount. You can create your own tests. And then the goal is to take all these data sets from models and rerun them and retest them. So now you get a new model, go run that same output you just got from, you know, a huge training set, rerun it through that entire model again. That's sort of where we're headed with a lot of this stuff. There's no tools to do that. They don't exist. This one does, and this is by far one of the best use cases we've had on the solution, is to be able to say, go rerun and evaluate all of my stuff I just did for the past 6 months. Make sure I get the same answer. Am I getting a better answer? What do I need to change? And then you can have the models actually tell you to change your models, which is fun. Pretty soon, I think it'll be like my wife and just tell me what to do. Wait, that already happens. Just kidding. I've been married for a long time, so I can say that. You can, and then you can test all the different things. So it's got all the capabilities with that, the different pieces in here. And like I said, there's a lot. You can dive deep into this really quick. Fine tuning. I'll hit on this real quick. I know we're about up on time. Ooh, fine tuning. I get this happens all the time. Customers come to me like, hey, we need to fine tune a model. Why? Because it doesn't have our data. You don't fine tune a model that has no data. You fine tune the model to reduce the prompt size. So like when people ask me, like, I got these huge prompts I'm sending into models every time. It's the same thing over and over and over, because I have to get it 300 examples every time I go ask this question. That's when you fine tune. Fine tune is go feed it with all the prompts and the expected outputs so it knows what to do. Don't go feed your data into it, because your data will change way faster than your fine tune. And they cost a lot. And you can't move.
So you're saying fine should be smaller if you're fine tuning?
Yep. So,
Big cost effective because
oh, massive, right? Yep. So I have a customer right now that uses the GT 432K model. So when we first started going at this, I said, can I see your prompt? They said, yeah. Page. Like, let's fix that first. So we did. We found a ton of white space. They had a bunch of repeating characters they didn't know about. So we figured out ways to sort of tweak the model. They finally started getting it down. They started looking at fine tuning, but the cost for their massive deployment was going to cost them a lot of money. They looked at Llama 2. When Llama 2 came out, fine tunable. You could run that at a different scale. You could do a lot of different things. So you have to, it's basically to reduce your prompt size. Now, if you're sending content into it every time, that's different. That's not consistent. You want to
was right. We save dollars on that, and it's faster from the model also to.
Yep. But with some of these newer models, GPT-4 Turbo has 128K context. You can feed a 500-page book to it. And it has one question. Yeah. It's slow. GPT-4 Turbo, the 128K. So we haven't heard exactly the specs on GPT-4 Turbo, but I think it's going to be pretty good. I wouldn't doubt if it'll be a lot larger than that. So the models are going to be able to take in more context. Where you spend, if you didn't know this on the models, you have input and an output. So the input that's usually where we're cheapest on the models. The output is where it costs the most, because it's what we're inferring and building and creating content. And outputting, that's where we charge more. It's usually like 3x, 6x on the outputs. The models change, prices go down, and then GPT-4, it's going to hit. I'm sure we'll see a slashing and dashing in some other places, but yeah, go ahead. Yeah. It can be, because so I always go back to this, and I should be repeating these questions. I'm probably not doing a good job. Hopefully you guys can hear that. But the main thing is on fine tuning. If you're repeating your prompts and having to treat it like a child way too much, and your prompt sizes are huge, you might want to consider it. It can get costly because in fine-tuned models, you have to host those models. So you pay for when they're running and you pay for when you use them. So if you have a business opportunity where you're going to run it, but it's only going to run 8 hours during the day in US, the rest of the day, you might want to shut that off and then bring it, rehydrate it later in the day. But that is definitely a good case. Now the key is you have to have a lot of data to train models on. Thousands of examples. So it's you're literally giving it, here's my question, here's my answer. And you want to train it on that so it can set the tone. And then you do train it. And then if you add more, you can retrain it. The good thing with the new fine-tuned models, you can actually train another fine-tuned model. So it's a lot quicker to train. So if you need to add just like 300 more, 500 more, you can just train just on that. So it's a quick way to do that. Good questions. All right, we are at time, and I was going to show you a lot more, but I knew this would happen because that's the way these tend to go with questions. Any other questions? I will stick around too. Oh. Ooh, token cache. Let me jump over. See if I can figure it. Even with token, oh, you're talking, oh, I got you. So you're talking about like caching it. Yep. Yeah. So if you cache it, there's some new things coming up, Nick. That's a really good point. Like I think when you're talking about that from the aspect of caching it, see, that was 6:51. So when did I say that? Oh, that was a while ago. That was like 30 minutes ago.
Yeah, I was talking more about the prompts being changed. I
Yep.
thought the whole point about token caching is that the amount of data, or you don't have to buy all the 2 million tokens, right? You can cache it and use the same prompt
Yep.
or same response because you cached that token and you don't have to spend a new token on a new prompt.
Exactly. And that's exactly where we hit back on this example. If I go back here, this is our Gen 3, right? When we talk about actually saving this stuff, this is right into here, right? So this is when we talk about this part right here, the memory tooling. A lot of customers are saving stuff off. Why would you ask the same question over and over? We get this all the time. You wouldn't believe the stats on this. If you start to look at customers, like if you're an HR company, or if you have a chat bot on your website, people ask the same question over and over and over and over. And the tone might change a little bit, but you can actually, if you have an intent one, you can have it say, hey, rewrite this question. But the embeddings are the same. So that's what we find, right? So like you might be able to take the question, embed that, create vectors of it, run it against your cached ones and be like, oh, that's a 99% similarity. I bet you it's the same question. Or instead of, I'll give you some secrets here on some different ways to do prompting, right? Is customers come to me and they're like, man, it's taking forever to parcel this content, create vectors and store them in a database. Or, okay, why not use GPT to just ask you the questions people are going to ask about the content and then just store the questions? Why not? And then when they ask the question, find out which questions have the context similarity, and you already know on the content in the document where it's at, and then go pull the document. Why store all these massive documents out there? I didn't say that because we make more money when you store everything in environments, so please do that. I need to pay for yet another kid to go to college, I think so. With that, I will wrap it up. Any more questions? I'm definitely be here, stay after. I will throw this build thing up one more time if you didn't see this already, or if you haven't applied, or is it F5? I can't remember.
Yes.
I generated this QR code. Now our
receipts are piled up and you need more time.
All right, let's see how this does.
Exactly. I agree. 100%.
We may have to put a delineator in here if it doesn't put the sections in. Okay, we've got it. Sometimes one of the things I've found is you switch to other
Where's that coming
versions of or other cultures and languages. For example, I did a song in Thai for my wife. Is that I needed to explicitly specify
that's
that
me.
the delineators needed to be in English.
Pretty sure I'm playing
so
that.
I could easily pull it apart.
I'm like, what is this? There's nobody unmuted.
All right, let's see
There
what
it
we've
is.
got here, folks.
If this session was fantastic, by the way, using AI to generate music, it's creepy. I'm a musician, so my daughters are also both, and well, my whole family's musical, but it's fun because I was showing them how to write music the other day and I said, you got to watch this video. So it's pretty crazy. That's what started playing in the back end. I had no idea what was playing. But yeah, so here's the build. I'll throw that up here again. So there's a QR code. If our security guys saw me doing this, they would yell because it's still
I didn't. But if you go to a restaurant, you scan QR code on a ticket. Pretty easy, create your own middleware, put the own QR code on top of it. So. And
Is that, we still recording? I should probably stop recording. Thank you very much. Any questions? Please ask. Yeah, you bet. Thank you all for coming online. I'll leave, but you may need to stop the recording. All right.